Okay, good afternoon, council. I think we can get started with our work session. Today is Tuesday, April 16th, all day long. I will call us to order and turn it over to City Manager David Cook.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. All right, let's see. First up, I'm going to call on one of our assistant city managers, Jessica. Where'd she go? There he is. To recognize some employees about our recent job fair. Jessica.
Yes, and while we're getting started, I'm going to show y'all some photos from the job fair, which was a huge success. I also want to invite our talent acquisition team up to join me as well. Maybe just right here on the side to block video. So Mayor and Council, I am truly bursting with pride to recognize this team and all of the efforts that went into our citywide job fair. Many of you also helped promote the job fair through your social media channels, through your monthly newsletters and your town hall meetings as well. I am standing here with pride to tell you that 24, nearly every city department participated in this job fair. They all had fantastic booths set up. They had materials on all of the jobs that they're recruiting for. They were engaged with all of our job seekers. And here's where the real fruits of our success are shown. Last year at the same job fair, we had around 700 job seekers attend. This year, we had nearly 1,400 job seekers attend this event. It was a huge success. We had two departments, both Parks and Rec and Police, conducting on-site interviews. In fact, I think they did 215 on-site interviews to try to make quick decisions. And that is certainly no easy task. It's a lot of coordination to do that. But they're very successful. They're getting it worked out. Our HR team, talent acquisition team, I'm going to recognize them in just a minute, but they did a tremendous job planning. Everything from the signage on the roadways leading up to Will Rogers. They had people in identifiable shirts spread all throughout the event. They also had a team of bilingual speakers spread all throughout the event as well so that we could engage with anybody and everybody there. They provided tremendous guidance and accessibility both to our staff that were there working events, but also those job seekers. So leading our talent acquisition team is Mr. Victor Escobedo. Victor promoted to HR manager, I want to say just under a year ago, and he is truly doing a tremendous job in this role, so we're very proud of him. Joining him, we have Vanessa Hotman, Human Resources Coordinator, Vidal Cox, Senior Human Resources Analyst, Garrison Ellington, Senior Human Resources Analyst, Sean Lynch, Senior Human Resources Analyst, Yvette Zimmerman, Senior Human Resources Analyst, Denise Granados, Administrative Assistant, and finally Daniela Correa Ruiz, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, HR Business Partner. Is she up here? She is not here with us today. But anyway, truly they've done a great job, and to get literally almost every single department of the city there, I think is just a massive success for this event. We hope next year to see it even bigger and better. So thank y'all so much for your efforts.
Thank you, Jess. Quick question for one of y'all. What's one of the best stories or interactions you had during that day that you want to mention to the group?
It was probably Molly just walking around. I don't know if y'all seen the picture. She's kind of behind people as kind of just a participant, but not really a participant. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. That was a little bit different that we did this year.
Yeah, what about on the hiring side? Anybody that comes to mind?
The hiring side, I mean, there was a lot of engaging candidates that are just really eager, for that opportunity. So we had a few that we've been able to kind of just direct to the right department. So we've already received a lot of interest from departments just wanting to bring them back and start that conversation with them.
Thank you. So, yeah. Appreciate y'all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would just add, my favorite was actually walking up to the event about 15 minutes before, walking in the doors and looking down, down the stairs and down the escalator at the lobby. It was jam-packed, shoulder to shoulder of people lined up waiting to get into that event. And so I think for people to show up there that early just showed their enthusiasm and excitement for trying to come work for the city of Fort Worth. The job fair, being just not even 2 weeks ago, I guess, we're still very early in knowing how many positions we're really hiring for out of this event. And some of it may be just getting the word out to people now, and maybe they'll apply later. But we'll continue to report back as we know real numbers, what it's producing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victor.
Thank you, everybody. It was a great event. I will point out the finance had cookies at their table, just for sweet working for finance. All right, next we have informal reports. The first informal report is on ARPA-funded streetlight capital project update, and Martin Phillips is available if there are any questions.
My one question is, moving to the, moving to the solar lights, is that allowing us to install more to the program? Is that allowing us to expand the program in any way? Or is it just a different method?
It's just a different method, but we do plan on meeting all the requirements in terms of the original ARPA funding. So all of the neighborhoods that we initially had planned would still be the same neighborhoods. It's just changing that to solar lighting.
And does solar cost the same as the conventional?
The initial cost, we took a look at this in terms of life cycle costs for the overall solar lighting. The biggest thing in the construction aspects, if you have on-grid lighting, you're trenching, you're putting in conduit, you're putting in wire, you have to have electrical source. For solar, you have none of that. You can assemble it pretty easily, you can stand it up pretty easily, and therefore the cost is lower. Long-term, you have electrical savings, and I think I put that in the IR just in terms of what that might look like. So there's an expansion of that. So an individual light for solar might cost more, but if you're looking at a full array of lighting for a neighborhood, now you're looking at some savings.
So it's not going to change the number of lights that we repair or replace, correct?
Correct. In fact, with what we're looking at doing for year 3 and 4, we'll probably end up putting in more lights. And what we were doing before was looking at more of the infrastructure that wasn't in good shape.
Okay.
And so if there was a pole that was in okay shape, we might just change the fixture. If there was bad wiring, we changed the wiring. So for the solar lighting, we're putting up brand-new fixtures with brand-new LED lights.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Martin, before you leave the podium, I wanted to add, you can do this offline. I would be curious to see what those maintenance costs and replacement costs are for the solar cells, the panels, and also performance, right? Say on a full charge, over time, how long would a solar-powered light last for?
Right. And our expectation is they last at least 10 years. They offer a 10-year warranty.
Yeah, but I'm also talking about like duration in the night, right? Like say maybe a 5-year-old solar-powered streetlight. How many hours of, performance can we expect on a given night, assuming a full charge? That kind of thing.
Absolutely. And I can provide those details to you, but we expect there to be no drop-off in terms of the performance of the lights
Okay.
at night.
All right.
In fact, and I mentioned in the IR, we installed these in several locations in the city where we had, where it was dark and we got residents who made requests, and we were able to install this lighting. And we've gotten very favorable responses and feedback from residents in terms of the quality of the light. In one instance, one resident thought that it might be too bright at first. We installed it, and they've been happy with it. So our team has done a lot of that internally, too, in terms of installation. And again, we're partnering with, Fon Roche Lighting, and we're very happy with that partnership and looking forward to implementing this project.
Okay, good to hear. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Next informal report is a 5-year update to our water conservation plan and drought emergency water management plan. And Chris Harder is available if there are any questions.
I don't have a question. I'll just give a kudos to Chris and his team that we had a water leak at my house that was our responsibility, and we're having a lot of trouble figuring it out. And one of his people came out to troubleshoot with our plumber, and now we're no longer leaking water down the street.
That's
So,
good.
Thank you, Chris, to you and your team.
That's a lead into our next informal report, which is the process to investigate seeping water.
Well, I was it. So
That-
there you go. You're good investigators, believe me.
And Jennifer Dyke, Chris Harder, Shannon Elder available if there are any questions
I have a couple.
to the mayor's leak.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Exactly, what did you do to cause that?
Yeah, I know.
So the reason I asked for this IR is because I get a lot of phone calls from residents, particularly in the Ryan Place and Fairmount area, where
Yeah.
we know our infrastructure might be a little older, about standing water. And it's really concerning to them as it gets hotter and we see mosquitoes and it's kind of like year-round. And we called, and our office reports it, right? And it either goes to water or TPW, and it feels like it goes back and forth, and everyone says not it, but we still have these pools of water hanging out in the streets. And so I appreciate this IR, and it does kind of lay it out, but what can we do to solve that problem?
So I'll say first, it's a lot of coordination between TPW and water. And so the two big issues is, I think is it groundwater and just natural seepage, and that's a natural occurrence across the city that really happens during kind of the spring and fall rainy season, and it dries up during rain events. And then there's the issue with the water line, actually like some kind of breakage. So
So I would say that when you see some type of a seepage, the way we look at it is we're guilty until proven innocent.
Okay.
Right? So, call it in. We will go have an investigation done. We will be looking for a source, if it's a water line leak, if it's a service line leak. The next question usually, if it is a leak, is it on the private side or is it on the public side? So we will go through that, I guess, the triage of the potential root cause. And if we don't see that it's a public water supply, then we do talk to TPW about resolution from a groundwater perspective.
Okay. And side note, and the topic of technology is creepy. I just got a mosquito management email notification, so they're listening. So come fix it, whoever's listening. No, and so then my next question is, when we have that, what can we do to address the concerns of our residents, particularly around mosquitoes? Is when we see that, can we then work with code? And I see codes up there to help really address that, because that's the concern that I get. It really isn't so much about water being there, but it's the bugs and diseases that come with them. And then another question, do we have springs mapped throughout the city? Like, do we know where they are?
I would say no to that. I mean, we know where a few are, but a lot of it it really depends on the weather, the soils. Sometimes they pop up out of the ground, sometimes they don't. So it's just really kind of a natural phenomenon.
Okay. Would it be helpful to know where they were?
So we could go and share the information for the locations that we've investigated in the past and try to put something together if that's helpful. The big thing with stormwater is, of course, our highest priority is life safety and flood risks. And so we don't want to go out there and spend a lot of money on projects to mitigate the seeping water when we know that. That's why we do the monitoring to see, is there a public safety hazard? Or is it messing up the road infrastructure? Or is there really a hazard reason driving that infrastructure that we're gonna have to invest in the future maintenance of? So we're really focused on more life safety infrastructure versus just kind of the nuisance. A lot of the seepage is just nuisance, and that's why we're trying to make sure we understand if there's a hazard or not.
Okay. So can we start in the future, when we have those situations, kicking that to code just to make sure that we're putting eyes on it from an environmental standpoint?
Definitely, yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Chris, don't go far. Next IR is on a proposed amendments to our industrial pretreatment ordinance. And Chris is available if there's any questions. All right, we're good. Next up is our informal report on management diversity, and Deanna Giordano is available if there are any questions. We're rolling.
I do.
Okay.
I do have one. Okay. I think it'll go quickly. Yeah, and I know in the past, with the hiring efforts that we've done, for example, when it started off with OPOM, the Office of OPOM, we looked at diversity components and then hired consultants to give us some direction and perform some of those efforts to look, for good qualified candidates. Has there been any change to that approach to date?
So the changes remain the same, where we're looking at diverse candidates, just casting wider net so that we can get a good variety of candidates in our candidate pools. And so those efforts remain, I wouldn't say unchanged, they are more expansive. So whether we're recruiting and just kind of the city hiring board, we also have other platforms and job sites where we post our jobs, but also with the search firms where we're looking at executive recruitment so that we can have a diverse pool of candidates to review and choose from.
So suffice it to say, we're still casting a sufficiently large net, not just relying on in-house resources, but outreaching where we need to the private sector?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Gina.
Deanna, I don't have a definite question, just a request. Before you came on board, I would always ask for the ethnicity and gender of the top 3 in every department. And that was my way of identifying who's in the pipeline. And so if you would just continue to pay attention to who's in the pipeline when it comes to diversity, I think it'll serve us well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next informal report is our monthly development activity report, and DJ Harrell is available if there are any questions. All right, we're on to neighborhood traffic calming program overview, and Chelsea St. Louis is available if there are any questions.
I do have one.
Chelsea?
Good afternoon, Chelsea. Thanks for coming out.
Good afternoon.
Well, you should know that by practice, this is one of my more favorite programs. I know I send a lot of emails out to you to evaluate streets, right? As we're seeing, and this is an unfortunate trend, some people drive irresponsibly and recklessly on our streets sometimes. And I know that I look, and your department looks for good, thoughtful applications of speed cushions and, speed tables to help, curb, those type of activities. And I know you look at it, you do your evaluations, due diligence before you commit to saying, yes, this is an appropriate thing. Just for the record, I'd like for you to step through, because I get a lot of questions from this too. There's a perception that a council member can just snap their fingers and make it happen, right? Not so, especially when streets where, say, the traffic code doesn't support that kind of thing. There is an avenue, for consideration, right, through petition. I was wondering if you just might briefly step through that so the folks listening in can understand that.
So we receive submittals through the service request system through My Fort Worth app or the call center related to speed-related requests. At that time, those requests are assigned to a staff member. And once that staff member makes contact with the requester is informed about the neighborhood traffic calming program. We evaluate the roadway to determine if it's an eligible roadway to consider traffic calming measures. If we do make that determination that it does qualify, we do some data collection. We follow up with the resident to confirm whether we can still move forward with the application process. And at that time, we provide the resident with a consent form, and as part of that consent, we require 2/3 property owner or resident support of implementation of the traffic calming measures, and we require 100% support of the property owners that are directly impacted by the placement of the cushions. So if there is a cushion being installed in front of your property, we want to make sure that you are fully consenting for us to put that in front of your property before we install it. And so in a nutshell, that's the process for getting the cushions installed.
Okay, one other question. When it comes to roadways that are particularly favorites of drivers who, drive irresponsibly, how do we convey that information to your department? I know I usually encase it in an email, maybe provide feedback from the MPOs based on their observations. What other type of information would you need to have that further insight to make a case for the installation of those devices?
We'll continue, so you can continue to send those emails. We receive requests from a number of different avenues. There are the residents who submit them. We also, as you mentioned, will receive submittals from council members via email. We receive information from our neighborhood police officers. So usually when we receive all of those requests, our next step is to work with our customer services liaison to generate a service request for that specific request. So all of those requests that we receive, even via email, still go through the same process.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
So for all these, what would be the most common that you said are installed?
Speed cushions.
Okay, about how much are those on average?
It depends. So with installation, it may range from maybe 3,000. They may be in the 3,000 range.
Okay.
It depends on how many cushions, the width of the roadway, and the cost of labor. So it can vary.
Gotcha. And then who, I guess, would I need to speak to maybe in your department, or maybe it's TPW or whoever, about temporary speed cushions, specifically in school zones? And they have these, we bought one because I'm a visual person and like to see them. And then talking to crossing guards, especially our most vulnerable areas like our elementary schools, where they can actually be employed with these portable speed cushions that they roll out. They're pretty cool. They're in a bag. I'll have to show them. If you've never seen them, they're neat. They just roll them out and it's immediate speed bump. Already talked to fire and police about it, and they said since their protocol is, even lights and sirens, if they're approaching an active school zone, they're slowing down anyway, so it's not gonna impede them at all. So who can we talk to about rolling that out citywide for those areas?
I would be happy to receive that information.
Okay.
I'm actually very interested in
Yeah,
the
it's pretty
temporary
cool.
speed cushions.
Yeah, ask
I learned
Booker.
something
Booker's
new.
the one that carried it up today. I was like, what's that? He's like, that's what you, I was like, oh, I know what you're talking about now. So it's really neat, but I think it could be very effective, especially in those areas.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Chelsea. I would just request before these are installed that you let our offices know in time.
Okay.
Lots of people want these, but there are some people that sometimes they don't like change. So helping us socialize that with the neighborhood associations that these are going in, hopefully we'll have a better positive effect and just letting us know in a couple of weeks' time, not the day before they go in, but a time where we can socialize it.
Okay, definitely.
Macy. Thank you, Chelsea. 2 quick questions. After the cushions are installed, how long do you wait to do the evaluation?
So it's been about 7 or 8 months since the initial installations. So we're about to just now start doing some of that data collection. And we typically use, we have a vendor that does all of the data collection. And so it's just a matter of us working those previous locations into the schedule again.
Okay. And what's the threshold of success? Is it, I know in the report it says 20 to 25% anticipated reduction. Is that the threshold, or what do you, my question is really specifically about the Clover Lane installation and the complaints we're getting about having the speed cushions there, but I want to make sure that we're articulating to them that the anticipation level of reducing the speed or whatever the level of success is.
Yep, so at this time, we're looking at the 25% reduction as the goal. As we're developing our Vision Zero action plan, we may refine that target because as part of that process, we are looking at the speed limits, which, gives a lot of our residents heartburn about, the prima facie speed being 30 miles per hour in neighborhoods. So we're looking at methodologies for how we can potentially reduce that. And so obviously that would also influence the target speed that we're working towards over time as well.
Anybody else? Chelsea, yeah. Jeanette?
Chelsea, inner city, if the applicant is required to secure those signatures from their neighbors, about how many neighbors would that be? I know it says 2/3, but in those impacted, but an average number of individuals I would need to sign off on the application?
So there aren't a number of individuals that have to sign off on the application. It's really the consent form for when we put the cushions in. On average, it's usually maybe 10 or 12 property owners that are impacted. The applications we've received thus far haven't been neighborhood-wide, so it's usually only, a block or two.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next informal report is on registration for community organizations over a period of time from 2018 to 2024. And Michelle Goot is available if there are any questions.
I would like an overview of
Michelle?
what the findings reflect.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So what the IR goes over is how registrations have increased with our neighborhood associations and HOAs over the years. Has a little bit of information about what's included for registration. And the other thing is I wanted to say that we reached out to all of the neighborhood associations in January to do their annual update. It used to be staggered, where whenever they registered, then on their anniversary, they were registered. It was very hard to keep up with that. So we sent out updates to all of them in January. We're following up on those to make sure that we have the correct information and the right contacts in the database. So I think that the numbers could fluctuate a little bit after we get those confirmations, but these are the ones we have right now. Any specific questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you discuss your office's relationship with neighborhood alliances and the city's obligation? I raise that because there's one alliance, I think it's East Fort Worth Alliance, and every time my district director tries to attend a virtual meeting, they kick her out. And so, what is the relationship there? Because I find that to be quite rude. So talk about that.
So we have 11 alliances right now in the city. And what happened in the past is the alliance would turn in their paperwork. They would say what organization belonged to their alliance, and that would be reflected on the database with a map for the geographic area. What we have started doing, based on some of my conversations with you and reaching out to the neighborhoods in the east side, we have started, when they send us their list, they will list all of the neighborhood associations that belong to their alliance. We then reach out to the neighborhood associations to confirm that they agree that they are part of that alliance. Now, one challenge we still have is that because we're drawing a geographic map for the alliances, sometimes it encompasses groups that don't actually belong to that alliance. And so we're looking at some updates to the registration policy that we'll bring back to council. And one of the things we're looking at is the way we represent alliances on the database. Should it be done with a geographic map, or should it be done simply by listing the organizations that belong to that alliance?
Now, I remember, I know the John T. White group rejected the claim that they were affiliated with this. What's the name? Is it East Fort Worth Alliance?
Neighborhoods of East Fort Worth, I believe, is their official name.
Well, I know that John T. White said, no, we're not affiliated, as did another association. What I can't reconcile is, how can the city embrace or endorse neighborhood alliances, but the council office be denied engagement? So that's a problem. So
I don't have
has
an
the
easy
answer?
solution to that, but I
every time
could
Sandy
talk
would
with
get
you.
on the Zoom call, they'd knock her out. And so my contention years ago was that neighborhood alliances were too unwieldy anyway for us to be able to manage. And the city attorney at the time agreed. We were able to manage neighborhood associations and work with HOAs, but when it comes to alliances who claim to have certain memberships that we find out they don't, I think that's a stretch. But we do need to address what is the relationship. Because if you're going to have the City of Fort Worth's endorsement as an alliance, then you need to have council members that are in that geographic area granted entry. And so who do I get to help with that, Mr. City Manager?
I just heard that right now, so I'm gonna help you on that. We'll figure that out.
It makes no sense, it's rude. Thank you.
Michelle, I do
My
have a question.
marina's gonna take care of them for me.
I do have a question for you regarding sort of a return to what we used to do in the past. And I know, well, I hope that your department is kind of trending back towards this practice. Our council districts are, replete with a lot of organizations, neighborhood organizations, and sometimes their meetings occur when we have our formal council meetings, or they occur while another organization wants us there, et cetera. So being in two places at once is pretty hard still. So in the past, your department has provided a representative that would go, like Mandy Gibbs, you'll recall, and attend some of these meetings and report back to us and say, hey, these concerns were raised, you might want to get back to the organization on that. I found that really helpful. And I've seen, I think, some semblance of that returning. Do you anticipate further reinforcement on that regard?
Yes, one of the changes that we recently made was we have now assigned liaisons to council districts. So we did that so that they could form those relationships with not only the district directors and the council members, but also the neighborhood associations and HOAs. And we've seen a big increase in the number of meetings that liaisons are being invited to because those relationships are being formed. So their goal is to attend at least one meeting for each organization. Some have annual meetings, and so we have to catch it when they have their annual meeting. Some have monthly meetings and want us to come every month, and we do those as often as we can. But we are trying to get out more into the neighborhoods to build those relationships with our neighborhood leaders.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Just one thing real quick. So I know your team's doing a great job at getting getting the database updated with all the information. As we know, information's only as good as what's provided to us. We've learned that the hard way numerous times. But as y'all look at launching this new database and then getting the word out, will that also include the potential of having like read receipts for notifications by chance, or is that totally separate?
We can look into that. I'm not sure if that's a feature. We have actually done some research and we're leaning towards one database that seems to have all the features we want, but I can look and see if that's an option too for the database. But from our emails, we can definitely do that.
Okay, yeah, I think that'd be great. And then as you're updating those lists and getting the information out, and you have new joins registering with you guys, are y'all suggesting that they use organizational emails rather than single points of failure? Because that seems to be a constant topic that we're dealing with, as well as that person no longer works there, they're no longer the president, they're vice president, et cetera. Is that something y'all are suggesting they do?
We do make that suggestion that they use one that's just passed from president to president, not somebody's personal email. Some of them use both, which is fine, but we like to have one that's going to be continuous. And one of the things we've started doing with our new associations is take some of our more seasoned neighborhood associations who have a really good attendance, they have a lot of projects, and matching them up so that they can work together and they can help to grow the new associations.
Well, Rusty Fuller, you know, he'll be a great advocate for you there, so.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. And our final informal report is an update on supplemental efforts to control litter along TxDOT highways. And Cody Wittenberg is available if there are any questions.
I have a few questions for Cody.
Cody?
Jody, first off, thank you so much for you and your team working hard on this. I know we had lots of meetings to make it all happen. I had two questions are, what was the cost for the pilot for the city of Fort Worth, ballpark?
Ballpark's around 200,000.
Thank you.
6 months.
And do you have an estimate what the MNC may look like on April 23rd, cost-wise?
Absolutely. So it's about 38%. I think it's around 600,000 overall, but it includes expanding those programs throughout the entire fiscal year.
Yeah, thank you. Is it fair to say this was typically a cost that the state of Texas and TxDOT normally would have covered? Maybe not to our standards, but this is where we're trying to fill in the gaps.
I would agree with that statement.
Yeah. So I think this is something for this council to remember, especially when we advocate in Austin, that we are willing and able to pick up this cost because it's a priority for each of us and our residents. But at the end of the day, the highways are the responsibility of TxDOT. And so I know our local office has been very complimentary and helpful to get us to this point, but we need this to continue. I think our residents now expect this of us, and it was one of the topics that we all heard about. And we wouldn't be in this place if it weren't for the partnership from City of Fort Worth, your department, of course, for Upspire. So keep going, but we're going to do our part to try to make sure that we're getting either reimbursed in the future or that the state of Texas really does don't mess with Texas. So we'll try our best. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor, that concludes my report.
Okay, David, thank you very much. Council, any questions regarding memberships on boards and commissions for April 23rd meeting? Do I need to read this? Is that's why y'all gave this to me? Okay, don't worry about it. And then questions regarding city MNC log that's coming up for the 23rd? If not, we'll move straight into our briefing on public safety in the West 7th Entertainment District. And I believe Chief Aldridge is going to come up to get us started.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Robert Alders, Executive Assistant Chief, Police Department. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the West 7th area, what we have going on. We're going to discuss quite a few things going on, not only in that area, but some of the other entertainment districts. So whenever we're talking about the West 7th Entertainment District, I want to kind of give the expectation of where we're at. So the boundaries are University, West 7th, Lancaster, and the railroad to the east, because a lot of people may believe the West 7th Entertainment District is a lot bigger than that. That may go to White Settlement, might encompass Montgomery Plaza, but literally this is the area that we're talking about whenever we talk about West 7th. So we talk about crime quite a bit, and it gets reported quite a bit. Any crime in any area is not good for us, not good for the city. But sometimes, you know, the perception of crime is not necessarily the reality. So whenever I looked at all 4 of the entertainment districts that we're going to have the study performed on, and I saw how West 7th kind of ironed out compared to the Stockyards downtown and near Southside. And as you can see how the numbers kind of play out, you know, West 7th had the lowest number of violent crime amongst the 4 entertainment districts. And so I thought that was pretty telling whenever you look at the numbers. One of the things that I did look at is year to date for 2023, kind of how did we play out? So we looked at King 12. King 12 is the beat that encompasses the entertainment district, but we also looked at the entertainment district itself. If you guys remember from many presentations ago, I know you guys have slept since then, we have 824 PRAs. King 12 in and of itself has 7 PRAs. The entertainment district is 1 PRA within there. So, but whenever you look at King 12's crimes against persons, those are kind of our violent crimes. And so overall in King 12 went down 8.4%. Property crimes went down 3%. Crimes against society increased 49.14%. When you look at actually the West 7th area itself, crimes against person or the violent crimes went down 15.3%, crimes against property went down 19%, and crimes against society increased 47.4%. Now, what's important to note is you see a large number and you kind of get concerned. No, you shouldn't get concerned because those are our proactive efforts. Those are some weapon violations. Those are narcotics violations. Those are our officers out on the street actually being proactive to try and prevent some of the incidents that have occurred in the past. And we'll look at some of the stuff that happens a little bit later on in the presentation. So the entertainment district study, as you guys know, we kind of did a national search. We had interviews and we selected Safe Night LLC. And they're gonna conduct a study in the Stockyards, downtown, near Southside, and West 7th. They're going to complete, on-site assessments. They're going to do risk terrain modeling. They promote, proactive alliance relationship building, and they're going to try and get the bars to develop a voluntary accreditation program and some training for the bar employees. On the left, you're going to see the funding breakdown of kind of who helped fund for this study, and then the phases are off on the right-hand side. There's going to be 4 different phases to this. We're pretty much in the second phase of this, the risk terrain modeling, the nightlife assessment's going to happen. Then we're going to kind of roll into the voluntary accreditation model, the data collection type component. Then they're going to create, the training component, and then 25 hours are going to be consulting. I believe Demetrios Mastoris is on the line here. He's a retired Master Peace Officer from Arlington County, Virginia. He was the co-founder and executive VP of Safe Night LLC, and I wanted to give him an opportunity to speak.
Good afternoon. How is everyone? I'm glad to be here. Thanks to Chief Aldridge, and we're happy to be part of what you're doing in Fort Worth. Really, when it comes down to it, the conditions are exactly what we want to see as far as collaboration goes. When we talk about RTM, and I'll break this down real quickly, the risk terrain modeling assessment is a spatial data analysis assessment that's going to focus in on micro locations, specifically into half block sizes. We identify not only high risk places, but the priority places for intervention. And that's where we use proactive alliance relationship-based approach to bring this multi-component model, meaning doing a lot of things and a lot of things well, and understanding that this is going to be bigger than just the police responding to those problems. What we are going to be bringing is not just the accreditation model. The accreditation model sets those standards of policy and operation for the businesses, but it's more important that the city understands that this is going to take a holistic approach to deal with a very big and complex problem like violence and alcohol-related harm in nightlife districts. So this model has been used, our model, with Proactive Alliance has been used for homeless outreach and setting up an outreach model in Arlington, Virginia, as well as we just worked with Wichita, Kansas with the Department of Justice. So essentially any complex problem that has lots of components and lots of organizations and lots of factors, you need to bring people together on the same page. And that's what we hope to do. Make the city understand that, you know, you need an understanding and support of the businesses focused on prevention. That's going to be the big part of what we do. The assessment that we will be delivering in the first third of the project will lay out some things that we see are going well in a city and things that can be improved on. But we're not going to just leave you hanging. We're not going to leave you to say, figure those things out on your own. The recommendations that we provide, we will be with you. That's why we're with you for the whole 12 months, because we're going to help you put these things into place. This is about empowering the city to do more. And with this model, you will be able to address other complex issues outside of the entertainment districts. And that's what we'll be talking about long-term, is bringing staff into this collaborative stance focused on individual relationships with the most relevant stakeholders. So that's the sum of it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think we do have a few questions. Councilmember Beck and then Councilmember Flores.
Yeah, thank you for being here with us today. I see in phase 4 that there'll be a 3-day training for city staff, which includes police, fire code, public health, city attorney, planning, and TABC. Will that training will those materials be handed off to the city to replicate at future intervals as we get new police, fire code, public health folks in the area?
Great question. So our model, we're going to have each agency with their liaisons, essentially the people that do the day-to-day work. And we're going to recommend 1, 2, 3, 4 people who are committed to doing this work for at least 2 years. That's going to be helpful. I mean, you know the rate of turnover that some city agencies can experience, whether through promotion, transfer, retirements. We need a commitment that you're going to do this work, because lack of consistency erodes trust and legitimacy. So to answer your question, they will have a 2-year certification and then start applying this. So if they plan to leave the multidisciplinary team that's created to address these issues, they have to have somebody in the pipeline who can take their role, because we're looking for sustainability here. This isn't meant to be a one-off. Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you. And then my next question is training for business staff in the area. So whether it be a bar or a restaurant or a retail store, will there be any training for them as a result of this particular effort?
So we always start with having the city and the organizations that are going to be, because we're going to be looking for a program lead for this accreditation model. You know, we've had city agencies, we've had business improvement districts, we've had nonprofits run the accreditation. So whoever the program lead ends up being, they will have to put forth a curriculum of training for the businesses. And that includes criminal civil liability, responsible alcohol service, active bystander for sexual assault. The list goes on and on. If the city can't perform that function as part of the accreditation, we do have an online training that can meet that goal. So for instance, in Dallas, the nonprofit has been able to find providers and work with the city agencies to provide the training that was needed. But in Norfolk, Virginia, they weren't able to do that, and the city didn't feel they could meet that requirement, so we've provided that for them. So again, there are options. It's going to be a question. I mean, our preference here is you're the experts on your city. It's far more meaningful for local providers to provide the training that is going to be meaningful to them.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Since you're on the training piece, may I ask this? I look at phase 4, December 1st through March 31st. Is there a way to engage potential training partners now, especially if you're mentioning the city of Dallas and go ahead and start that process. It would certainly be nice to have that training complete before the fall TCU crowd comes back, especially in the West 7th District next year.
So unfortunately, I would say no, it's not. We can't plug and play for a lot of what we do. We follow a blueprint of success that we've had in other cities. We need to lay a foundation, especially the accreditation model. If you look at that, the training is a reinforcement of those policies. So without having the accreditation model established, having employees understand what they are responsible for and what the accreditation means, the training really won't mean a whole heck of a lot, to be honest with you. That's what makes a little bit different from the hospitality side, is that there is no accountability. There is no formal process to legitimize their practices. So we use training as a reinforcement of the policies rather than the other way around.
And you think you'll have the voluntary accreditation model in phase 3 is complete by the end of November, and then you move into the training module next?
That's exactly right. The training will happen throughout this whole second half of, the training needs to be available to any business that's coming on. Once the program lead is established, we work with all the city agencies as well as the bar owners and operators to understand what this accreditation is going to look like. Because we're going to provide a template, but you have to make this your own. This has to be meaningful to the city of Fort Worth. It has to be meaningful to the community stakeholders. So if there's going to be, standards that are introduced into the model that don't exist in any other city, and that's okay. You have to work with and make it your own.
Thank you.
Training
Carlos and then to Gina.
will continue. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Demetrius, Assistant Chief Aldridge can attest to this. I've been asking about news, about this program for a bit, ever since it was announced. In the stockyards, in that entertainment district, I can tell you, we've been trying to do for some time whatever is best expedient based on stakeholder input and the input that we get from police. We're trying to be as proactive as possible. I'm looking at that model, and maybe I share some of the mayor's concerns. We're much further along than what your timeline has here. Maybe, and I understand that your model is not a plug and play, but I think I would humbly suggest that you start making outreach to the stockyard stakeholders now, because I think that might help, at least in that entertainment district, to kind of speed things up for you, maybe avoid some duplication of effort, because we've already been implementing some, measures that have begun to, I think, have some good effects. So if you need to know that, the chief can plug you into the Northwest Division. We have regular meetings that occur. You can outreach to me, and I can, put you in contact, with that group.
Sure, I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate your concern that, especially on the outreach side, we've been very clear since the beginning that the outreach needs to come from the city. We've heard all the time that we're outsiders and we don't really understand what's going on. And we acknowledge that there is going to be a level of understanding and expertise and knowledge that we just don't have. But that's what we're going to rely on, not only the city, but the stakeholders to provide as well. Outreach needs to come from whoever the program lead is and from the city agencies. Our goal here with this model is to leave you with something better. We're not here to, bleed you dry. We're here to give you a model that can be replicated over and over and over with the same results. So at the end of the day, outreach is going to have to come from the city. We are going to provide guidance. We're going to provide the language. We're going to provide all the support in having successful outreach to those stakeholders. But it needs to come from all of you.
Okay, well, consider it, I will make outreach to you. I will ask the chief for your contact information, and I'll take the initiative. I'll make contact with you, and we'll get going. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Gina.
I've got a couple of questions. I was looking up Safe Night LLC and found out that I think in 2021 you came to Dallas and you referenced Dallas. I don't know the difference in reality versus perception, but when I looked at the stats presented earlier, I was surprised that 7th Street was not as rough and rowdy as I thought it was compared to downtown really was. Okay. And when you think about Dallas, all the time I hear about Dallas these days, it's, from the media, and it's never good. So when you look at crime and what we're trying to do with Safe Night, is there a public awareness component so that those who are not connected with the city of Fort Worth would be able to engage? And furthermore, are there any intellectual property right concerns about city staff taking this to the neighborhood level later on? So first question to you, sir, about Dallas and perception and community. Next question to you, police or city manager.
Sure. Well, in Dallas, like I said, a nonprofit ran the program. They are the ones that pushed a lot of the initiatives that you see at the city level. John Fortune, the city manager, can talk a lot about that, as well as Chief Garcia. They did not have an organized nightlife strategy, and they were experiencing some high levels of violence, particularly in in areas of Deep Ellum. So bringing everyone onto the same page, when we did the first training for the city of Dallas, a pretty remarkable statement that was made by a captain of the fire marshal's office that was responsible for nightlife operations said, we're expected to go make relationships or develop relationships with a lot of the operators and staff. And he goes, I'm sitting in this room and I don't even know half of you. And we're supposed to be working together on these problems. So that's what we do. We facilitate that. And 24 Hour Dallas was the catalyst in bringing Dallas's nightlife attention. They now have a nightlife director, that's assigned to the mayor's office. They have Visit Dallas. So it's about, kind of bringing everybody into the fold and getting a seat at the table to find out where they can help either amplify or participate in this type of work.
I appreciate that. So it appears once again, Fort Worth will have an advantage in terms of planning when it comes to community outreach compared to how Dallas does their stuff. So, yeah. So when it comes to are you going to address that other question, Chief?
Could you ask it again, please?
Okay. Yeah, when you look at news media accounts, here recently, all the crime was occurring on 7th Street, based on what you saw in the media. I am a recovering media person, I understand, I'm not criticizing them. But that wasn't the reality based on your stats. I was surprised to see the stats for West 7th compared to downtown. So I think there's going to need to be some type of community outreach to make sure the public is informed of how we're spending their taxpayer dollars and what they're getting back in return. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but think about that, because we will need to report to the public so that people will feel safe when they're going out.
Absolutely.
So,
And my hope is that this presentation will help at least alleviate some of the fears that some people have had over the past, couple of years. So I appreciate Demetrios being online with us. We look forward to working with Safe Night. It's good to get an outsider perspective of, an expert in the field to see what we can do better. So, my hope is that we can take a lot of the information that we received, share it with the community, and let them understand that we are working on problems that they see in media, social media all the time.
Council member, was there a question about you said something about copyright?
yeah, intellectual property rights in terms of if we're able to take what we glean from your training and apply that at the cellular or neighborhood level, because there are other entertainment spots, but they're not necessarily where you go in and pay. They're where people gather. So is there a problem with us making it our own at a lower level?
There won't be. We've worked that into the intellectual property rights. Essentially, the city's been granted a license to create your own program using the template of our model, if that makes sense. And that's where we'll be able to help as you start unveiling it and reaching out to different areas.
I'm encouraged. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, moving on. So although the entertainment district study is just one aspect of what we're doing in West 7th, there are quite a few other things that we're doing as well. So whenever you look at the PID update, one thing that you guys have heard about is trying to establish a PID in the West 7th area. The blue shaded area is the PID that we're trying, the boundaries of the PID that we're trying to get established. The green dots in the middle are the residential areas. Lacey Ruiz, of course, City of Fort Worth employee, she's out in the audience. She's back there waving. She's been doing a lot of work on this. I mean, she has been out there knocking on doors, talking to the residents, talking with businesses, and really she's done a lot of things that are outside of the scope of a normal PID. Because any kind of PID petition is usually run by the residents, run by the businesses, run by the people that actually would like to have the PID established. We've been having some challenges getting somebody out in the community to take hold of this and run with it on their own. But Lacey has understood kind of the importance of this, and so she's accepted the challenge and continued to push this forward. Tomorrow, we have a meeting about the petition itself, and hopefully we can get some people engaged and get some of those signatures on the PID itself. So the further we can get that pushed down the road, the better, because once we can get it established, there's a lot more things that we can do for that area. So the West 7th Ambassador Program, Block by Block, provides ambassador services downtown, which everybody's kind of aware of. And this program is very similar to that, except they're going to work in the late night hours whenever the bars are open. We look at them as, eyes and ears for our police officers to help them out in that district area. The board, the CCPD board, approved $315,000 to get that up and off the ground. And again, for the West 7th purposes, it's the same boundaries that we talked about a little bit earlier where the ambassadors would be located. Another project we have going on is the Bollard Project. If you guys are unaware what bollards are, they are metal things that come out of the ground that help prevent people driving down the street. So hopefully this map, you can see the green locations of where we would like the bollards installed. And the whole purpose of the bollards is to help prevent traffic coming into the West 7th area at certain times of night to help people get out of the West 7th area. What happens now on a Friday or Saturday night, sometimes Thursdays and Sundays, is that we place police cars at these locations. And whenever you place a police car there, we have to place 2 officers there for their safety and to make sure people do not get hit or hurt. And so this would alleviate us having to put a police car out there. They could be retracted whenever we don't need them in use, and those officers could be patrolling the area. And so the project, it costs approximately $140,000. We've been working with TPNW to try and get this thing established and off the ground.
Chief, do we have these in other locations across the city?
That's a good question. I would have to look.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Lauren's shaking her head, no, you don't think
Nope.
so, yeah. Who controls the apparatus and
So
when it's up or down?
We would.
Okay,
So we would basically have access to them because they're only going to be up for probably about an hour,
right.
and it's just long enough to kind of get the crowd to clear out. And then once we're done with them, we would lower them back down.
Okay.
The only other place we have in the city is in the stockyards, the entry point from East Exchange into Rodeo Plaza, and that's controlled by the Coliseum.
Okay.
So we are a very different city, as Mayor Pro Tem Bivens has said. We have great community partnerships across the city. We have established those for decades. And so in this area, we meet with the Bar and Restaurant Association regularly, the Neighborhood Alliance regularly, the Cultural Alliance, and the Linwood Neighborhood Association, which is impacted by this area. Our partnerships go far and wide with TABC Code, the Fire Marshal, the Fire Department, Development Services, TPNW, the list goes on and on. So it's not just one group working on an island to try and solve this problem. This is literally a team effort to try and solve this complex problem that we've been dealing with for quite a while. So on this, I just wanted to kind of show you guys real quick. It's a very short little clip of what it kind of looks like whenever they get pushed out of the bar. And so this is on Foch Street, next to Texas Republic. We're not picking on Texas Republic, but it's where we have one of our cameras. And so you're going to see the time lapse as we kind of go on, and you're going to see how the crowd kind of increases along with the traffic increasing. And so that stops at 2:07, but I can tell you whenever you watch the video further, it takes till about 3:15 in the morning until people kind of really clear out and the streets get back to what they were before this happened. Around 2:30 in the morning, again, don't want to bore you with videos, but our police officers basically kind of form a line and kind of encourage people to get out of the area, because what we've learned, when people congregate, that's when bad things happen. So they bump into each other. Next thing you know, an argument ensues, and then, some really bad things happen. So the quicker we can get them out of this area, back to their homes or residence, that helps us out tremendously. So Current police strategies. The officers that work down there do a phenomenal job. If anybody has been down there, you can understand for a very small window, their job is very challenging. Outside of that window, they are addressing a lot of the needs that are going on even outside the bar times. So they do traffic management, they're trying to improve the lighting, they do a lot of self-initiated patrol activity. We noticed that we had an uptick in homeless issues going on during the daytime, so we put a handful of officers on the day shift to try and, minimize some of those impacts to the businesses that are in there. So you guys helped us with the open container ordinance. That has been very successful, at least to try and minimize some of the young people that were out on the streets kind of drinking alcohol. And then there's a pilot program for a criminal affidavit program. It's kind of a global criminal trespass warning, if you will, so that each individual bar does not have to criminal trespass somebody if there is a problem. So self-initiated police activity, we talked about that, the proactive patrol, the crimes against society number going up. In September of 2022, the West 7th learned that instead of standing back, standing on the corners, watching things go on, they needed to take a more proactive approach because these violent crimes were occurring. And so what they did is they increased the traffic stops. They started doing a lot more enforcement of just minor violations, which led to narcotics arrests, which led to, since 2022, 182 illegal guns being taken off the street. So, I mean, that's pretty phenomenal in a very short period of time because those are guns that would have been in that area if they wouldn't have been taken off the street. So upcoming strategy, of course, we're going to increase the foot patrol and bike patrol, kind of get officers out of the cars and rolling around whenever we need them. Flock, we're going to start installing flock cameras within that area to help, monitor the vehicles that are there. Flock approached us after a couple of high-profile incidents and said, hey, we want to help out. And so they voluntarily said, we will give you 10 businesses that will be part of our community camera program, and we will pay for it, and we'll upfront the cost and, feed the information to you. They're going to propose new pickup and drop-off zones. They're going to be on Curry Street only. So our next steps is, of course, execute the contract for block by block, get the ambassadors down there. They should be in place about 2 to 3 weeks after the contract is signed. Continue work with Safe Night on the entertainment district study, the installation of the bollards, and continue the community engagement efforts. Now, you guys are probably wondering, why am I looking at this Jaguar that is off to the right-hand side of the screen? So these officers got dispatched to one of the street bar locations. There was a guy with a Jaguar on the chain. He was allowing people to take pictures with said Jaguar. An individual did get bit, skin was not broken, but of course we got called to the scene. We had animal control come take said Jaguar and was put in a sanctuary. But if it can happen, it's gonna happen in West 7th.
Way to make it memorable, though,
That's
Chief.
right.
That was excellent. Questions from council? Chris?
Chief, I have one question. You mentioned that, I guess in the daytime, you're adding more officers for the homeless.
Yes.
Are those officers coming from other areas that they are monitoring, or is this coming from for overtime or something like that?
No, this is actually, it's carved out from the officers that are already assigned to West 7th. So 4 of those officers went from the evening midnight shifts and were working the day shift hours.
Elizabeth?
Chief, I have one question for you. When do we expect it says the ambassadors could be in place within 2 to 3 weeks after the contract is signed. When do we anticipate signing that contract?
So whenever we had previous discussions about the ambassador program, we wanted a valid petition before we started the program because CCPD funding was supposed to be a pilot program, supposed to get it off the ground. Then the PID was supposed to kind of take it over. The contract's ready to be signed. I mean, really, if you guys instruct us to do it right now, we can do it right
So
now.
instructive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, we can't wait.
I thought we did that actually weeks ago, so.
Yeah. Pertaining to the contract, we don't want to wait on
Yeah.
a PID being
yeah.
finalized.
Yeah, I thought
when
we
next-
went over that like a month ago.
Yeah,
Well, I believe it was CCPD funded, correct? So it would go
It
to
was.
CCPD.
It was.
it is, but I
It
think
was.
the holdup is executing it because we're waiting on the PID. We don't want to
We
wait on
don't
the
have
PID.
to
And
wait
I
on
think
the
Councilmember Beck did send an email
We,
over
we
a month
may
ago.
need to go back to the board to amend the action because I
Yes.
believe the action was contingent on the PID being
Mm-hmm.
in place. So
Yeah.
that may just need to be a quick amendment with that board and then it could go.
Next meeting is wonderful.
Great.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Chief. And really, this is just for the benefit of everybody watching. So I did a quick back of the napkin, sorry, I did a quick back of the napkin calculation, and just based on this presentation alone, the city has committed $504,000 to this particular area. As part of that PID, Economic Development has brought on 2 temporary staff members to help us track down those folks and get that petition signed. It does not account for the previous dollars that we've spent in TBW and from CCPD, adding additional cameras and adding additional lighting to the area. And the reason that I say that is because I think I often get, and maybe most of you at this table, people going, why aren't you doing enough in West 7th? And I think what this shows is that we are doing a tremendous amount to support that area. And when you look at those crime stats, or just the stats in general, and it's working. And it is not, it is a safer place to go and be part of the city. I think what we're looking for is how we control and manage that many people, because the distinction between the different areas that you saw outlined is how big it is. And when you looked at near Southside, it had PRAs, correct? It had like 26 of them listed. And so when West 7th is 1, and so in that geography is what we're looking at, and that I think is what creates the issues. But I want people to know that we are proactively working on that, and that does not account for the staff time of the 2 ordinance changes or the meetings that Mayor and I have had with outside agencies and internal as well. And so I don't want that to go lost. I really appreciate the work that Fort Worth PD has done down there. I know we have had, I can't even count how many meetings we've had internally and with our partners to try to better understand this situation and make it a more enjoyable place for everybody to come visit. So thank you for everything you've done. Thank TPW. I've made William Johnson walk the area with me once at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and we physically walked that area to figure out what, from a safety standpoint, what we could do to make it better. And so I appreciate the mayor and all of my colleagues too, not flinching when we've asked for additional dollars to make West 7th safer. Thank you.
It's truly a team effort. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Chief, you may have mentioned it, but when do you expect the bollards to be installed?
So we're still working through the contracts to make sure, everything's in place, because the initial quote that we got were for different bollards. And so we had to go back and get another quote. Now we're evaluating the streets because there's some utility lines that are underneath it. So I don't have an estimated date. I would love to tell you it's going to be on this date, but I mean, we're actively working on it. So that's one of our top priorities.
And then in some of our meetings with bar owners in the association, there was discussion about voluntary wanding at the door.
Yeah.
Do you have a status update on that?
So we know, I think 2 of the bars do voluntarily wand, but not all the bars do.
Yeah.
So
and is that a hesitance to do so, or do they need the equipment, or a gentle nudge?
A nudge,
Great.
in all honesty.
Okay.
Because I think if the ones that want to do it are going to do it.
Right.
And we've encouraged all of them to wand their individuals before they come in. But as Councilwoman Beck knows, not everybody attends the Bar and Restaurant Association meetings.
Right.
And sometimes it's those people that don't attend are the ones we need to encourage.
Well, we can work on that together. I mean, I know you've done quite a bit. But.
Yeah, I've actually asked PD, and I want to reiterate it here today publicly, to look at, because we approve all of those off-duty positions, looking into a policy change specific to West 7th that Fort Worth PD, they can't employ Fort Worth PD officers unless they're willing to have their staff wand. And I think that's a stick and a carrot that we need to think about using, because I can tell you that the officers that I talked to down there have asked for a mechanism to require wanding.
Yeah. And then maybe this is more of a request for Leanne's office, because there's so many different elements that do include your department, especially on the contracting side. You may already have that one person that's assigned that oversees all of these elements, but if you don't, let's do that so that Chief Aldridge knows he's got one person he can work with. I know sometimes that your staff gets stretched, and maybe that would help prioritize some of these to move forward as quickly as possible. And Chief, pass along thanks to your department. They've done an excellent job in a short period of time, and it's working, so we'll keep plugging.
It's the men and women on the street that are doing the job for sure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And hopefully no more jaguars in
Hopefully not.
captivity. Is that an actual picture of that jaguar? Or you
It
just
is.
pulled- Man,
It's
in the backseat of the car?
That's in the back of a patrol car, yeah.
Don't you know that police officer thought, this is not why I went to the academy, but I'm going to figure this out. Maybe it is. Yes, you never know.
Either that or they wanted to take it home. One
Yeah,
of the
that-
two.
yeah,
So,
there you
yeah.
go. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Okay, council, our next is a Park and Recs update, capital update with Richard Zavala.
Good afternoon, Richard Zavala, Park and Recreation Department. I'm really happy for the opportunity to talk about this with you today. First of all, I thought he was going to say that was a sleeping panther. I did too. That's what I thought he was going there with that. I'm really excited about doing this because just on Monday, we're going to be dedicating the boardwalk at the Nature Center. It's a $3 million project. There's no bond funding in it. There's funding from gas well revenues, a state park grant, the Friends of the Nature Center, the MEDA, or formerly Facebook Foundation, a $3 million project is going to be dedicated. And at the end of May, we will be doing Forest Park Pool on May 24th. And that is funded from a number of sources, including tax notes as well as bond and gas well revenues. I say all that because one of the things I'm going to talk about is how we cobbled together funding to try to address inflationary factors that we've all seen throughout of all of our projects since 2020. The other thing is that on May 21st, you will have an MSC that will award 8 playgrounds. Those playgrounds are the last of the 40 that we were replacing. The same inflation rate that affected all of our other projects is affecting that, so we pushed it out, but we're finally getting near to the end of that project. So with that, let me just start with your goals. This is really about community investment and infrastructure, but really we touch it all. Responsible growth, if it's part of parkland dedication and investment there, economic development, the Botanic Garden, the zoo, so on. Community safety, if we're doing drainage or stormwater work, as well as park security lighting. When it comes to the manager's action plan, David has really hammered into us. Take care of what you got and make sure you have a plan for long-term investment. And that has really led us in what we do. Fortunately for the park department, we've had a 10-year master plan. One in 2005, one in 2015 that we're working on, and we're working on our 2025 plan now. So that guides us. As far as cost increases, I'll talk a little bit about that, how we cobbled together funding when we're addressing projects. And then the last are values. And efficiency is really important in these projects. So what I want to do is go over a high-level view of the capital improvement program for fiscal '24, which you adopted as part of the budget. Talk about the things that we've done to improve efficiencies, as well as things that we plan on doing, really to focus on communications, because I think we had a wake-up call on a couple of projects, not real big projects, but smaller projects, and we know we can do a better job on that. So with that, I'll walk through this at a 30,000-foot level for these projects. And then we'll make sure that you get your individual council project listings by the end of the day or tomorrow. We do that with you on an annual basis, and we'll get them to your offices. So put up your tray tables, flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, because I'm going to go through this quick. Methodology first, how we're structured. This is our Planning and Resource Management Division. We've got 70 FTEs. We've got 22 in our development section. You'll see that circled in red. The long line is our park planners, project managers that do all the plans and construction, but we also have a small capital projects crew that does smaller projects. We don't have to pay for plans. We can pretty well get things like shelters and some playgrounds and sidewalks and things like that done. So from a delivery standpoint, I mentioned the small capital. For the large capital, we look at all options, and we work with property management. Mainly when we go to design build or CMAR, it's in conjunction with them. But we've done some horizontal projects there. So we always stop and say, what's the quickest way to get this done? The thing that I tell the staff is inflation is eating up your money. So time is money. Time is money. You got a $6 million project, 3% interest rate. Now you're losing $15,000 a month, $150,000 a year. So we're always pushing for that. As I mentioned, we'll get you the detail on these projects, but what we have in play, which you adopted in '24, we've got over 80 projects, over 200 million. The pie chart on the left, you can see about 60% of that is with bond program funding. Other funding, a big portion of that is gas well revenues. And we've got a number of grants, both from COG, Texas Parks and Wildlife, that we're doing a lot of trail projects. The one on the right shows the project statuses and where they are. This includes the 22 bond. We've got projects already under construction. We fast-tracked both Forest Park Pool and Meadowbrook Golf Course. Northwest Community Center is in there, and I'll talk about where they sit in the bond program. But we've got about half already in design, so we've really jump-started the whole process. Give you a sense of where we are on the last 3 bond programs. You approved an M&C just a few weeks ago. The last of the 2014 bond program was allocated. That was $31 million. 2018 bond was $83 million. You can see that we're 2/3 done with all of our projects. We have construction projects underway. The big one is the Northwest Community Center. That's gotten a little bit more complex as we deal with access into the park, and we've got some projects in design. If you look at the original schedule, we should have been done by the end of '23. We're going to be about a year and a half behind when we complete these, but we had a little thing called coronavirus that affected our production, supply chain demand, and those kinds of things. But I'm proud of the staff because they've stayed with it and getting these to closure. And in a 22 bond program, that's $122 million. You can see half of them are in design. We've got construction projects already underway, and we've got projects that are planning. We finished one, and that's Candle Ridge. We did some erosion control work out there through a co-op. So I always like to look and say, what have we done in just the last 4 or 5 years? There's $65 million worth of work here. Our service center, we thank you so much for that. Diamond Hill and North Zebos, those were completed. Both received an additional $1 million in Parks and Wildlife grants. Chisholm Trail, we completed that, added park dedication fees to expand that, and finished the largest skate park I think you could see from Earth at that park. Rockwood Park Golf Course, that was finished fast, $7.4 million project. We actually returned about $200,000 back on savings. We were able to apply it to other projects. Alliance, that was a $7.7 million project. We got not one, but 2 state $1 million grants to complete this. And we also worked with Hillwood and got a $1.5 million road to access that park. Trail Mix, that was 4 different trails. It was a state park grant, $4.4 million. Overall, it was $6 million. Streams and Valleys kicked in. So again, leveraging other funding. Lake Worth Trails, it's a wonderful thing because we're doing it with gas well revenues coming out of the water department. It's all part of the Lake Worth plan. We've got $7 million worth of trail work there. And Fire Station Community Park, that was completed last year. We had $680,000 that came from Southside, near Southside, to help with that project. So what's coming, what's on the horizon, the big active ones, I'm not listing them all, but the pool, Heritage is a big one. Northwest is working, that's 2018. Bomber Stir's gotten funded both out of 18 and 22. We're leveraging a lot of COG funding for that. And then Fire Station Community Center just kicked off. And you can see the Northwest Community Center there in the photograph. The cost went up because we had to have access to State Highway 156. So that's what drove that cost up, and longer utility runs and things like that. So what have we done to try to improve? It's about efficiency. Remember, time is money. I sit in on their monthly capital project meetings. I make them a lot longer because I want to know exactly what's going on. It's a great team. We've reorganized a number of times. The main thing is we put a special capital projects officer over that section. That's Scott Penn, and he's doing outstanding work. Something good that came out of COVID, we have 7 project managers. We found out, hey, we can have another 7 under consultant contracts. You've approved those, so we've doubled our ability to deliver projects with that. Leveraging projects, and I've made the note of large project insertion, the water gardens. You've approved M&Cs, that is going under the convention center expansion. We did the same thing in 2000. We were able to do the water gardens project. It puts it all under one general contractor, so the coordination of the work is good. Partnerships, outstanding with the zoo primarily and Brit, and working with others. I talked about the various delivery mechanisms that we utilize. And then I think you've understand from what I've said, there's a lot of opportunities for us to leverage. I was telling my boss Jess yesterday, I think we're at an advantage of that as a park department, and we should take advantage of it because we have those opportunities that maybe other departments don't have. So what have we done to improve what we found out with one playground that said, you know what, we think we're doing a really good job about communicating this with all the stakeholders, and we are with all the larger projects. But it's those smaller ones that get lost in the shuffle. So we're covering it with monthly park board reports. You receive copies of those. We meet with you on an annual basis with your park board member. So what we're going to do next is we're going to create an individual project web pages for all of these. It's an old legacy system. If you pull it up now, everybody's under the same thing. We've got eBuilder coming. It'll have that as well. So as we build these, we're going to look ahead and make sure we can just slide it over. Remember, time is money. I don't want to waste any time putting these over there. And we need your help. Anything else we can do. We've been doing photographs when we dedicate a playground. We'll come out to neighborhood meetings. Anything that you want us to do to improve basically our communication and keep people up to speed. Our nose is the grindstone. We can do a better job of it, but we're focused on getting the projects out. So any way we can get your advice or get your direction, we'll surely take it because we want to do a better job there. So with that, I'm just going to repeat, those 8 playgrounds are coming with an M&C in a couple of weeks, and we'll get those completed. And in all, we'll have done 40 playgrounds over a 5-year period. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Question on the 8 playground update, and I know this from Dave and your team and Jess, but sounds like those smaller projects, you bid them out usually as a group, if at all possible, because of cost savings to the city, but sometimes they're more complicated in certain areas. And I know this because I have a 7-year-old that's been asking me when his park gets done, and it was a 2018 bond project, but it sounds like within the end of the year, we'll have a new park, correct?
It'll probably be a little bit longer than that. We award, so they'll have 8. We don't stage how or decide how they go out. But yes, you've approved 2 projects for 14 playgrounds. That's all PAYGO funding. If we didn't have PAYGO funding, that's our bread and butter. It helps us do those. We established that list actually back in 2017, and we were projecting on it coming, but it takes 2 years once you get the funding. And playgrounds at the time were $250,000. They're $320,000 now. They've gone up nearly 30%. So I applaud the staff for being able to look forward, how do we fully fund these without coming back and saying, we need more money? You know, we can just push it out a little bit further. We're not going to leave something out there that's not safe, obviously, but.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've sort of refined your process a little bit. What I didn't articulate well is when you have, let's say, 8 projects, you dig in, you realize 4 of those are going to be really easy and 4 are going to be more complicated. At what point do you and your team decide we're going to peel these off and not do them as an entire group because you can expedite those projects much faster?
Yeah, they'll look at each one of those projects individually, do the groupings, because we don't want to do a big package to one contractor. It gives them, obviously we get more bids, but it also helps on the scheduling, things like that. They'll go through every one of them and make a decision. If there's a complication, then they'll pull it out and either adjust the specs to address that, or they'll address it another way.
Thank you. Any questions for Richard? No. Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
update. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Elizabeth does have one.
I have one question for you, Richard.
Yes, ma'am.
When's Forest Park Pool going to be done?
But Splash Day is May 25th. That's a Saturday. May 24th, we do dedication at 6:30. That's the Friday of the golf tournament, so anybody's hanging out over there can come over to the pool. I think we're going to have a lot of entertainment
We are.
that night.
I think you're going to be part of it, right?
I might be part of it, and other duties as assigned. So I'll come in my swim gear, I guess.
Should I give him your idea?
Is it synchronized swimming? Because I've already.
Council cannonball.
I'm down. I'm down. I'd invite everybody here on this council to do one with me.
Yes, and I'll just add, Ms. Beck, I'll tell you that Brinkley Sargent, Steele Freeman, property management, their staff, development who has to do the permits, Scott Penn is leading that project and working with them. I know I'm probably leaving somebody out, but it has really been a team effort to get us to this point. And, you know, we should be, maybe we'll do Marco Polo instead of cannonball, but we'll be ready to go.
Thank you, Richard.
Right, thank you.
Okay, our last update is from Lauren Prier, Transportation and Public Works Capital Projects Update.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for having me today. Today we'll be talking about our capital program project update. So today, we'll go through our bond program project status. So we'll start off with right-of-way and utility relocation improvements, our budget challenges, talk about the individual programs themselves, also cover our non-bond program projects. Then we'll go into some of our other divisions, notably pavement management, transportation management, stormwater, and then ending with the Regional Transportation and Innovation Team. So right-of-way acquisition and utility relocation were two major issues in our 2018 bond program. So to improve right-of-way acquisition, we're using consultants to help with non-condemnation right-of-way activities. We also have an early focus on right-of-way acquisition instead of easements. So easements aren't critical during the pre-construction phase because they don't hinder our ability to relocate utilities. So we're also using possession and use agreements on parcels that are headed for condemnation. So PUAs offer a 10% incentive to property owners, which allows us the authority and legal access to the property while negotiations and condemnation continue. So condemnations are pursued as soon as allowed by law and concurrent with continued negotiations. So while it's difficult to really have a true apples to apples comparison here, we're generally seeing the right-of-way and utility acquisitions process move faster than in previous bond programs. So we still have issues with clouded titles, bank liens, airships, changes in ownership, and property limits that are slowing the process. So to improve the utility relocation process, we've added subsurface utility investigation services by consultants to our arterials and select intersection projects. So cost increases continue to be a mixed bag. Bids and cost proposals received over the past 18 months are all over budget. Real estate costs have increased. Understaffing is forcing a workload shift to consultants, which increases project cost. And we're still seeing supply chain issues. And we continue to compete for contractors within the Metroplex. So moving on to the 2014 bond program, one project remains, which is McCart-McPherson. So this has been a right-of-way acquisition challenge. However, lessons learned from this project have been applied to the 2022 bond program. So a condemnation hearing is scheduled for this project in April for the two remaining land parcels. So once the right of access is obtained, then utility relocation will begin with construction scheduled to start in January. So the 2018 bond program is wrapping up with 78% of funding spent. So this program was primarily delivered through the traditional design bid build. We had 4 arterials rescoped to add additional lanes, and currently there are 16 projects in an active or on hold status. So the 2018 bond proposition was broken down into street improvement and mobility improvement categories. The neighborhood street projects are all complete. Know that the funding listed on this slide includes all funding sources, not just the 2018 bond program. So both Golden Triangle and Avondale Hazlet were rescoped in 2020. So know that when rescoping a project, you essentially start over. So not much from the original design is able to be salvaged or reused. For Golden Triangle, land acquisition was completed in January of '24 through a friendly but over year-long condemnation process. So utility relocation is currently underway and is anticipated to last 6 months. For Avondale Hazlet, land acquisition started in the spring of 2022. We are currently pursuing 42 parcels from 40 different property owners. We have 13 properties left to acquire, and utility relocation is anticipated to take 18 months for this nearly 2.5-mile corridor. For the 2018 intersection projects, we have 3 not yet in construction. The North Crowley Road and North Crowley-Cleburne Road intersection. This had long delays in coordinating scope changes with both TxDOT and the new Crowley ISD sports facility at the northeast corner of this intersection. However, this project is currently being bid. So the 377 intersection improvements for the railroad crossing at Basswood and Kroger Drive, that's currently on hold. We are negotiating with the railroad on maintenance fees for the lifetime of these and other railroad crossings across the city. We'll be briefing the MITC on this topic in June. So the Northwest Loop 820 and Marine Creek Parkway project, this was broken down into 2 phases so that the locally funded Phase 1 improvements could be delivered more quickly. So Phase 1 construction is complete. Phase 2 is with TxDOT for final review, and bids will be opened this November. So this slide represents the programmable portion of the 2018 bond for the TRE at Haltom, Riverside Drive, and North Beach Street Railroad projects. So these were delayed because of a funding change from bond funding to federal funding. The coordination of this change started at the end of 2020. Design is complete, and now we're advertising and bidding. So the 2018 railroad projects at Windsor Park, Park Place, Mistletoe, and Kellis Group, these are all design complete and on hold for maintenance fee negotiations. However, the Kellis Group is being negotiated separately with the railroad as to not impact the Tobias Place opening. So moving on to the 2022 bond program, 90% of projects are under design. Right-of-way acquisition and utility relocation is moving faster, and we're expanding our use of alternative delivery. So there are 43 static arterial neighborhood streets and intersection projects in this program. So our alternative delivery projects are Everman Parkway, Wagley Robertson, Cromwell Marine Creek, and Ray White. Cromwell is an upgraded scope carryover from the 2018 bond, while Everman, Wagley, and Ray White have taken time to get their alternative delivery teams in place. They are expected to pick up speed from here. So this is due to their ability to work with the contractor during the design phase on constructability, coordination, and potentially early work packages. So for Bonds Ranch Road, RCE federal funds were awarded to TxDOT to design and construct a bridge over the BNSF Railroad. This is great news for congestion relief, and we're working with TxDOT on the sequencing and overlap of our roadway project with their bridge project. So April 2026 is the worst-case scenario for a construction start date. However, we anticipate it to be sooner. We should know more once TxDOT gets into about a 30% design this summer. For the Bailey Boswell Road East project, our 9-month-long negotiations with the developer to design and construct a portion of this project were unsuccessful. So now we're procuring design services with a designer under contract by this August. So all of the 2022 bond intersection projects are at or beyond the 60% design level. Most of the projects are actually in their final design phase. So 4 of the projects are anticipated to start construction before the end of this year, with the remaining 7 projects starting construction in mid to late next year. So the neighborhood street names within these projects will be on your council district specific handouts. For year 1 projects, all 6 projects are under construction with a targeted completion date with the end of this year in 2024. Year 2 projects will start by the end of 24 and finish by the end of 25. And year 3 projects are in design with a bid and award scheduled for 2025. However, this is dependent on available budget. So right now we're expecting a $20 million shortfall in this category based on prices we've received to date on projects. So for the programmable projects in the 2022 bond, we have 1 project on hold for railroad negotiations. So that is your East Berry and East Seminary sidewalk project. We have 3 signal projects in construction, 2 bridge projects and 2 traffic signal projects in the bid and award stage, and 8 projects in design. So we have over 38 non-bond funded projects from multiple funding sources. So these include TIF funding, intergovernmental funded, impact fees, and state and federal grants. So notable projects include Meandering Road. So this is 100% federally funded with a bid opening date of September 2025. There's also the North Beach Street and Champions View Parkway intersection. So we'll be building this with our unit price contract and expect to order materials this May. There are over 10 highway safety improvement projects in coordination with TxDOT. So these projects are focused on reducing fatal and serious injury crashes through intersection safety, pedestrian safety, and reducing speeding. There's also 2 Safe Routes to School projects in here for AV Caddo and AM Pate elementary schools. So these are currently in preliminary design and environmental clearance phases, with construction expected to start in May of '26.
Go back to the other slide. This is for Gina's benefit. The 121 Landscape Project, Public Art, District 11, is that supposed to be the gateway public art project for City of Fort Worth? It is?
I will defer to the experts, Lisette, so that is correct.
You have to go to the microphone.
Yeah,
Lizette.
microphone, Lisette.
Sorry.
Yes, so we've been working with the Public Arts Department for the last 2 years to identify and obtain all the necessary funding for this project, and now we're ready to proceed. I believe that the AFA, which is the Advanced Funding Agreement with TxDOT, has been executed, and so we'll be going out for procurement soon. So this is the project that has the Fort Worth letters with all the landscaping around it and the lighting that is going to be sort of kind of like in that space north of 121 near the Gateway Park. And so I'm gonna get that built before I retire. So you're confident that we'll get that done. So we're really looking forward to get that completed in the next year or less.
Just to be clear, the artists are designing it, not the engineers.
Right. Mayor Pro Tem.
Let me tell you all about this. This thing has been in District 8, District 4, District 5. I am not convinced it's mine now. And because I think it's going to, who knows, but it's been like a hot potato. But I do want to acknowledge Acme Brick, because when it was for sure mine, they had offered to help with the bricks, and we hope to have a Hollywood entry, if you will. I don't think it's mine anymore, but yeah. But I'll just believe it when I see it, okay? But it'll be fabulous if we ever do it.
Thank you, Gina. Lauren, keep going, sorry.
All right, moving on to the Pavement Management Program. So the PAYGO Pavement Management Program is where all of our pavement maintenance activities take place. So these are our fiscal year 23 and 24 PAYGO projects. We have 4 ongoing miscellaneous contracts for various repair and maintenance work. So these include joint sealing, brick repairs, miscellaneous concrete work such as curb and gutters, and concrete panel replacements. So we're also doing maintenance on 14 bridge locations to replace railing, concrete joint repair, as well as riprap repair. Moving on to transportation management. So we'll start off with our pavement markings. We will install nearly 3 million linear feet this year in refreshed pavement markings. So contractor availability and price increases impacted our ability to meet and exceed our fiscal year 23 goals. However, we've added 2 more contractors and increased our quarterly goals this fiscal year to catch up and maintain pace. So the streetlight program continues to exceed my expectations. In 2022, we only completed 60% of work orders within 30 days. Now 100% are completed within 30 days. Awesome. The freeway burn rate has increased from 42% to 80% since fiscal year 22. So it's a 38% increase.
What does that mean?
So a burn rate means how many of the lights are on.
Okay.
So 80% of your lights on the freeway are on and burning.
That's a huge deal, Lauren.
That's a huge deal, and there's still more work to be done.
Yeah.
On our arterials, our current burn rate is 82%. So we only measure burn rates on arterials and freeways.
Thank you.
So freeway lighting, projects 1 and 2 are PAYGO funded and are now complete. Projects 3, 4, and 5 are 2022 bond funded. So US 287 from downtown to I-20 and I-30 from 820 to the eastern city limits are currently in design, with construction anticipated to start next fiscal year.
Is that part of the ARPA dollars that we?
I'll get to that. Hold on that question.
Nice segue.
We did not plan that. All right, so TPW received $12 million from the ARPA program. So this was broken down into the 4-year plan for 28 neighborhood streetlights. So work has been completed in year 1 and year 2 neighborhoods. As mentioned in the IR, the scope included LED conversion and the replacement of poor condition streetlights, poles, and wiring as needed. So overall, we replaced 448 streetlights and installed over 37,000 linear feet of wire. So year 3 and 4, this is going to look completely different. We'll have a complete removal and replacement of 3,400 streetlights with the new solar lighting in 16 neighborhoods. So the benefits of the solar lighting include connected technology using renewable energy, quick installation, reduced vandalism, reliable operation during power outages, low maintenance requirements, cost savings, and a wider range of installation locations off-grid. So we'll start removing and replacing streetlights this August with project completion by October of '26. Our sidewalk program. So this is a listing of all of our sidewalk implementation programs. PAYGO sidewalk projects are for the installation of sidewalk gaps. Projects are typically generated from service requests with the implementation guided by our active transportation plan priority ranking, safety, ADA access, MMA locations, pedestrian connections to school, transit access, and nearby pedestrian demand generators like commercial activity centers, public facilities, and parks. So PAYGO sidewalk projects focus on locations that really don't require design, right-of-way, or utilities. We save those for the bond program. We're also partnering with Trinity Metro to replace or install new bus pads each year. We install sidewalks as part of the Neighborhood Streets bond projects. And for pavement management PAYGO projects, we replace the ADA ramps as required. So we've installed over 78,000 linear feet, or nearly 15 miles of sidewalks since 2020. So we'll install over 10,000 linear feet this fiscal year. Moving on to stormwater. So stormwater projects include channel rehab, flood mitigation, hazardous road overtopping mitigation, reactive, storm drain rehab, and Central City projects. So notable projects on these lists include the Central City projects for Grand Avenue and Greenleaf, which are in construction, as well as Central City Main Street and Viola, which are working through their pre-construction submittals and are headed to construction soon. So projects in development that are not yet on this list include Linwood West 7th flood mitigation, LeBeau flood mitigation, and the McCart-Berry flood mitigation projects. So once they hit the planning stage, right, then they'll start to show up on this list, or the early design stage.
Councilmember Beck, also, we have, the Stormwater Group has been working in identifying alternative funding sources, and they have just submitted for 2 different types of grants. I believe one is from FEMA, and the other one is from Waters of the US. I'm not sure, but between those 2 projects, we can potentially get up to $100 million for these projects. So we're in the process of submitting all those applications, and so we're very optimistic that we're going to be able to then move these projects forward.
Okay, thank you.
And Lauren, this program is made possible because of our prioritization this last fiscal year to do storm drain rehab, correct?
So the previous fee increase for the stormwater program, half went to maintenance and half went to these large flood mitigation projects like LeBeau, Linwood, and Barry McCart.
Thank you.
These projects on here primarily stem from the previous fee increase. All right, moving on to regional transportation and innovation. So this regional transportation and innovation team plans our arterial category and applies for large grants among their many other duties. So we were recently awarded the SMART grant for weather sensing technology to provide up-to-the-minute weather conditions on our freight corridors. We also have the Safe Streets grant funding, which provides comprehensive corridor safety improvements. So that can include traffic calming, lighting, and enhanced pavement markings. So everyone always asks me this, how do we get more grant funding? It's simple, just 4 steps, right? So to be competitive in our grant applications, our projects must show these 4 things. 1, a regional priority and ability to demonstrate partnerships. 2, project readiness. So that means having a well-scoped and planned project with cost estimates, fatal flaws, and data-driven benefits. 3, we must have stakeholder and public support. And 4, must also have the ability to show economic development benefit. So simple. So next steps, we'll be working on completing the bond programs. We're also knee-deep in fiscal year '25 budget preparation, as well as starting to prepare for the 2026 bond. So as discussed earlier, there is potential for the 2022 bond projects to be deferred for additional funding. We're also working on the citywide master transportation plan update, so also known as Moving a Million. So this is going to help us set our project priorities for this bond program and future bond programs. And we'll continue to prepare and apply for grant opportunities as they become available. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Carlos.
Thanks, Lauren, for the presentation. Going back one slide to slide 32. Low altitude weather sensors for D2, 4, and 10. Could you tell us a little bit about that? For example, what is considered a low altitude weather sensor?
I'm not super sure. Lisette, do you know about that? We can get you more information on that.
That's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? No. Lauren, really impressive update. Thank you very much. Your team is wonderful and you are very, very busy. And I think it's demonstrated in your presentation here. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. All right.
Council, I believe that's the conclusion of our work session. Do we have any requests for future agenda items? Carlos, then to Charlie.
Okay, here we go. You know, I know in the transition from old City Hall to new City Hall, David, there are a lot of items that we can't use in the new City Hall. Some are being thrown out. How well do we do, say, for example, aside from electronics, which I know a little bit about that recycling effort, what about metal? I'd like to know what we're doing on that front, because I've been hearing and seeing that a lot of it's getting thrown out, and there is inherent value in that. So, okay, thank you.
Charlie.
So my request is for a report from, I guess either environmental services and/or legal. I'd assume it's probably gonna be a combination of both, and probably contract services. So maybe getting Christian Harper involved regarding trash and waste management. Once again, with them being a $21 billion company, or at least $21 billion revenue last year, I know I'm tired of it. I know Alan is. We got a ton this weekend, but Night Waste Services, I'm absolutely ready to declare war on this whole process. Last email that went out from Jim Kiesel, from Assistant Environmental Services Director, it said, "I again apologize for the service provided by Night." That was to a resident. I'm putting that in my signature line now. So it's getting really out of hand where we're just hearing like, oh, we're trying. They're not performing. Waste management, they're certainly, if they're not providing, if Night doesn't have enough trucks, something needs to change. And if everyone's being told, hey, we're gonna handle it at the highest levels by the city, which is what they're being told, we are the highest levels by the city, we need to hold them accountable. I understand they're being fined, but like, they are garbage, all pun intended, but like, we've got to do something about it, because it's one of the most basic, easiest services, and constantly getting missed, constantly getting 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 if they're lucky, and then they call in a report, they're like, oh, call back tomorrow, and then they have until 7. So they're getting frustrated, I'm getting frustrated, we're all frustrated, but at some point, we just have to say thanks, but no thanks. We're changing the contract because you're not able to meet the requirements in the contract. So I know it's a 10-year thing or 8-year thing, but just let me know how we dump them legally. And the reason why I asked this at work sessions, because I want the residents to know exactly what we're doing and know that we got to do something about it, so.
Yeah. Maybe rather than punt that to future agenda item, would be appropriate for David to comment or legal, and then also if Cody is still here, wants to say anything, that'd be helpful.
Mayor, both men have inspired me today, so I'm going to tag on them. This morning, Charlie, and I don't know who it was. Val, do you have trash pickup or, okay. Today was my bulky trash day, and I had a death in the family, so I was kind of off. And so I'm running to my, into the driveway. I'm in the driveway with a box as big as I am, so it's not that heavy, and the truck just keeps on going by. And I didn't complain because I was late. It wasn't at the curb. But there's something about professional service. And the guy just looked at me looking like some homeless kid with my, big TV box and just kept on driving. again, rude is the only thing I can say. Carlos, when you talk about the giveaways, the last time we did a giveaway, I think we donated to nonprofits, but I know that council members didn't have a chance to participate in determining who those nonprofits would be. I know that there are other things that are going to be given away now. Why don't we do a lottery system and let people sign up for what they might want and draw? But I think it was just really favoritism because we didn't get in that loop. But I sure wish I had room for that sofa, the snaky sofa. You know, I'm a hoarder in the lobby, and I know I am. I had stuff that even people wouldn't even pick up who always pick up stuff. Now, my original ideas before you guys got me off track. I had the pleasure of sitting in on a compliance meeting this morning detailing Hughes House construction. HUD has changed its Section 3 requirements and qualifications. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it simply means if you're building with HUD money, you should be able to hire people from that community who are underemployed, underserved, what have you. I don't know the changes, but I do know that there is still a challenge with Section 3. And so I would love to have HR and diversity, equity, and inclusion to get with Fernando and myself, and we talk about how we can help with this Section 3 requirement of Hughes House. It's going up quick. There will be a training, I'm told, that Christina Brooks has promised. My requirement on that is, let's have that training in or near Stop 6. There was a desire to combine it with 2 other trainings, but I don't want the population of Stop 6 to be left out because you move us to Hazel Harvey Peace. That is not convenient. And so I can help find a location. I don't know when in June this is going to be, but we must do better with Section 3 than we did the last time we were building Cowan Place. And the other thing, I'd like for William Rumley, who is my dear friend, to give me a calendar for the rest of the year of warrant forgiveness activities, because the people working with this same firm would like to know that they really enjoyed partnering with them before, but they only knew about it when they got the flyer. I know we schedule these things ahead of time. And so if William can just share that with me, I'll pass it on. And those are my future requests.
Thank you, Gina. Cody, if we could go back to Charlie's comments and requests, if you don't mind.
And first, Cody, thank you so much for taking the time. We talked a little bit, but I'd like for everyone to hear what we talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have the contract with Waste Management, and their subcontractor is Night Waste Services. We've had continual conversations about working together to figure out how to elevate that level of service across the city. And certainly these comments are not unique to recent months. They've gone on for several months. So I anticipate that we're going to continue those conversations internally with both Law and with our city manager's office and those representatives from those 2 firms to continue to strategize and see what we can do to elevate that. We'll be happy to bring some information back to you.
Is there any way we can bring both of those parties to a work session to talk about what they are actually doing to make things better? Like, is that actually getting Mr. Knight here? I mean.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in to say that we need to come back to mayor and council with an update, because we're nearing the end of the temporary MBE waiver that we provided to Waste Management and Knight as a way to help get through some of those missed pickups and customer service issues. If you may recall, Waste Management took on some of the routes from Knight during that temporary period. That waiver expires, I believe, on May 8th. And so it's perfect timing for us to come back and make sure there is a service plan in place to ensure that there are not missed pickups and residential garbage is picked up as planned.
Yeah, if we could just get Waste Management to take over 100% of those routes, then I think we'll all be in a better spot, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Elizabeth.
Last month, FEMA announced that it was seeking grant applications to the tune of $36 million for fire prevention in communities, and I'd like to know what our plans are to go after those dollars.
Any other future agenda items for council? If not, I believe this meeting is adjourned, and we're going to move into our special called budget workshop.